Hey everyone, welcome to Ground Up. We're coming to you from the Level Wellness Studio, the show where we turn pain into pivot and help you navigate the entrepreneurial minefield. We are excited to share this show with our listeners everywhere, thanks to our wonderful partnership with the good folks over at WNSR. I am Terry Bargi, and today, filling in for our good buddy Roy, is our new co-host,
Yay!
Vanessa Hampton. Vanessa, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to have you on here.
Yeah, I'm excited too. A little nervous.
Oh, lies.
I know.
Lies.
It'll go away quickly.
I'm the nervous one. And we're also joined with a very special guest all the way from Bardstown, Kentucky.
That's right.
Will Hardy.
Thank you.
The crowd went nuts. You've been all over the place this morning.
Yeah, it's coming in hot here.
Yes,
but we're here. So.
Yes, high step in traffic in the parking lot.
That's right. Yeah, didn't want to die
So
going out. I never thought I'd go out like that, but you know,
journeyed all the way from Atlanta to get run over in the parking lot.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
right. That's right. Yeah. I had a week in Atlanta, catching up on some business and some partnership opportunities out there, and so this is a nice little stop on the way home before I get back to Kentucky.
All right. Well, let's get into it a little bit because Atlanta's not the origin, right?
That's right.
Bardstown is Kentucky the origin?
Yes, Kentucky.
Okay.
So Bullitt County. I grew up in Mount Washington, which is just one town kind of over from Bardstown, Kentucky, the bourbon capital of the world.
That's right. And for our listeners and viewers, Will is, boy, I don't want to get this wrong. There's so many things you got your hands in. I know you from the Trail Hotel,
right.
Mutual friend of ours, Tiny Irwin, who's been on the show,
Yeah,
Southern Whiskey Society. We just worked on his event last month. Yeah.
Yep.
Connected us, I think it was last year. Came to your house. I watched the show where you remodeled this really cool house. Your story from that was awesome too, which we probably won't share on this podcast.
That's right. That's behind the scenes.
Yes, we'll keep that under wraps. But that was my first taste of getting to know you and then learning about the hotel that you were doing. The hotel is amazing. It's bourbon country or bourbon culture inspired.
Absolutely.
You took it to a whole nother level though. Like it's insane.
Thanks,
but that's not also your full story.
Yeah.
So grew up in Kentucky. Tell me why or when or how you got out of the state.
Yeah.
Start there.
So, well, first off, thanks for having me, man. This is awesome, and I'm an open book, so ask any question you want.
You're going to regret that.
Yeah, no, it's maybe, but you know,
We got questions.
I like to lead with the vulnerability as the forefront. So, yeah, so man, I went to obviously grew up in Mount Washington, Kentucky. All my family's still there. Went to college at Eastern Kentucky University. I started dabbling in some modeling, acting in my early teens, which took me to college, where I was doing some theatrical plays, commercials, some local events, so on and so forth, and just really kind of felt like that was kind of the next driving force for my life. Very passionate about the entertainment industry, and so I was 14 credit hours short of graduating, and I ended up getting a phone call that I'd booked a reoccurring role on Days of Our Lives.
Wow.
Soap
Nice.
opera.
Okay.
Yeah. And so my mom and dad loved that conversation,
Sure.
the day that
But you only have 14 hours.
yeah, that's right. They were like, it's,
We see
it was one of those, like, we're proud of you, but I hope we don't regret this kind of thing,
Yeah,
you know?
100%.
But, interesting enough, and everybody's got their own unique personal journey. School is never a big thing for me. I was, battled with some dyslexia and some ADHD. And, for me, it was all about, sitting in the back of the class and trying to get through as much as I could and I wanted to be a good student. It wasn't about that, but
Sure.
it was just hyper, it was hard for me to focus on what was at hand, and which I think has turned out to benefit me in multiple ways in my life.
To say the least, yes.
Yeah. So I was in college, and I ended up becoming president of a fraternity out there, and I told my dad, I'm like, if you can micromanage 60 rebellious kids, you can about run any business in the world.
It's true.
And that was a lot of fun. But so I packed bags, went to Los Angeles, and man, what a journey. Dabbled in that for 2 or 3 years. had several projects that I was working on, and it's just one of those kind of things where, it's a kind of a lonely world out there.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of me just kind of by myself, kind of exploring, taking my own kind of personal walkabout. And let's be honest, I mean, at that point in my life, it was mostly ego-based, right? Just trying to get there and find the next piece of my life.
Sure.
So was that a full-time job for you, or you were piecing together income when you were
I
doing
wanted it to be.
Okay.
In seasons it was,
Okay.
right? I mean, seasons it was, I'd made enough off certain jobs or modeling things where I could, pay the bills. And then, I was a server for multiple restaurants as well. That's kind of the running joke out. If you're in LA trying to be an actor and you're really a server, it's like, are you an actor or are you a server? And it's like, kind of both,
Yes.
And, so it was some lonely nights out there, just trying to, eke my way through. And it's interesting. Ever since I was a little boy, I just always had, I always fantasized of accomplishing something great, doing something big. And weirdly enough, I never thought I'd work for somebody. It just never was in my.
So you didn't have a specific idea about what that something big was. You just knew that it was.
I had no idea.
I love that.
Just
I am meant for greatness. I don't know what it looks like, but that is what I'm meant for. That's fantastic.
Obviously some of that is childhood self-protection. Some of that is, personal awareness. But, I grew up in a family of banking. My father, my grandfather, two amazing human beings, and they were in the banking industry. And I'm my grandfather's namesake. I'm George William Hardy IV.
Okay.
So he approached me in kind of college and just said, hey, just so you know, you always have a place here, and I'd love to kind of pass this on to you at one point. I think
you have siblings, Will?
I've got one older sister.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got one older sister, and I was the only son, and I was the oldest grandson of a whole huge family. But I'll never forget the day I told my grandfather, I said, look, I love you and I'm so proud of you. I was like, but I could never sit in a bank chair. That's just not.
How old were you when you made that decision?
I think it was right around 20.
Okay.
When he made that phone call to me.
It's good that you knew that then.
Yeah.
I did.
Because it took me a lot more years to figure that out.
Well, and by the way, but back to your question, I didn't know what I was going to do.
Still, you're just like, I know this is not it. For you to have that.
In some regards, it was just
concept
ignorance,
of that.
right? I mean, I could have had a lot, great stability and, know exactly what I'm going to do and comfortable. And, but I've always kind of thought outside of the box, and I just needed a room to play.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to get in the sandbox and make a few messes along the
Mm-hmm.
way. So yeah.
Well, that's a good way to describe it right there.
Yeah,
For sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm starting to pick up a theme here with entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
We're all a little ADHD.
That is so
and
true.
we are all a little dyslexic, and we do not do well in classrooms or seated behind a desk.
It seems like that, man.
That is.
Isn't that wild?
So were
Literally
you
my
already
story.
acting when you made this decision definitively with your grandfather?
I played a lot of sports growing up, and that was kind of a big thing for myself and my family. And I'll never forget this. My senior year, I was kind of like a closet actor. Like in my mind, I wanted to be that.
Yeah.
But you got to be the cool guy, the tough guy. Whatever.
Sure.
Theater. Come on, you're not going to do theater. I mean, who does that?
Mm-hmm.
And my senior year, I'll never forget. I was walking down the hallway and I saw that they had a poster, and it was an audition for the new upcoming theatrical release at our high school, Grease.
Okay.
Danny Zuko, right? And of course, I remember watching this movie, and I was thinking, I was like, I just kind of looked at it, and I was like, I think I can do that, And I was like, of course, had to fight through all the fears and,
Sure.
all your buddies just nagging you and just, what the heck are you doing? This is ridiculous.
Can I still
are
be
you
a
kidding
jock
me?
and act?
Exactly. And so, man, I went all in, and I went in for the audition, and I landed the part of Danny Zuko, and ended up not playing baseball that season to really just go all in on this project. And so it was really kind of fun. But I think that was the final piece in me that kind of really sparked that interest to go, I think I might be able to do this,
Mm-hmm.
And then of course you get to LA, and again I'm thankful to say that I've had some parts, and I've played certain characters, but the reality is you get auditions, and I was with some of the biggest agencies out there, and you walk in for Spider-Man or Terminator 3 or whatever it is that you're auditioning, and there's 200 guys that look just like you. as big as you, better than you, whatever, and you're just
Gosh.
sitting in this audition like, oh, here we go.
My
You know?
mom told me
My
I was
ego is
unique.
Yeah,
suffering
yeah.
at this
So-
point a little bit.
So you get that really quick, humbling experience where, in Kentucky, you're kind of a big fish in a small pond. And then you get to LA and you just realize you're just one of many, trying to grasp at this dream and this goal. So it was humbling in a lot of ways. It was an amazing experience. And, there was a transition in my life spiritually when I was out there. There was kind of, again, just, I was always looking for kind of the next thing, to maybe bring happiness or bring peace or bring
That
hope
sounds so
or
familiar.
another
Oh, yeah.
entrepreneur.
Yeah,
You're
it's
100%
100%. Something is not right.
Yeah, the next thing that's going to,
Is this
go.
what it's about?
That's right.
Right.
And I'd done enough to where it was just like, I touched it, I'd smelt it, I'd tasted it, and I was still really lonely, and just really going, there's something else, there's something more going on. And I had this kind of spiritual moment. I'm not sure this is a faith show, but I just had this epiphany in my life that I needed to kind of move in a different direction, spiritually.
I don't know that it is or isn't either, but it's a part of the story and that matters.
Yeah.
Right. Like whatever transition that or pivot in that moment, to overuse the term, that matters in that moment matters for that reason. So can you elaborate on that a little bit? Like what changed?
Yeah, man. I just, I'd felt a little out of control, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just like these moments of kind of helplessness. And then of course, you leave everything you're familiar with, right?
Mm-hmm.
You leave everything you've ever known.
And you were by yourself in LA, right?
I was by myself,
Yeah.
basically. I mean, there was a couple times I had a roommate here and there, but it was, we're all scattered, right?
No family,
Everybody's
no
trying.
friends
Yeah,
from your,
no,
nothing to ground you.
Nothing like
Yeah.
that whatsoever, and had no real consistency. I mean, I had the jobs that I was working on, had the acting classes and a few friends within your acting classes. But again, it was just kind of like a real kind of lonely walkabout for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And yeah, just maybe I guess I had enough time to finally slow down to think about what's bigger in life. And for me, I knew I needed a more grounded spiritual life.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, I came to know God, and that's kind of reshaped something in my life. And interesting enough, shortly after that, that became a real passion of mine, and ministering to others, and kind of reading the Bible, and kind of really honing in on trying to build a foundation, because I was so far out there, and through that process, I just really still believed that God wanted to use me in the industry. And so I worked on my craft harder than ever, but it kind of seemed like the closer I was getting kind of with him and our relationship, the more the doors were closing.
Okay.
And it was kind of that was a tough, kind of raw, unique,
Which direction are you taking me?
yeah, unknown
Yeah.
season of my life, And but I was extremely disciplined, and it's like first time ever. It's like I'm doing all the right things now,
Mhm.
like I'm not messing around, and again the doors kind of kept closing. So there was an interesting moment where I want to be careful how I say this, but I hadn't worked in about 8 or 9, 10 months, something like that, and I was doing acting classes 3 days a week. I was working at California Pizza Kitchen. And as a server, and you're passing shifts just to get to the next audition and the next moment of opportunity. And unfortunately, in the industry, it's I'm back in it now, so I can speak to this, but it's a little shallow in the sense that
Sure.
if you're on top of the world, then everybody loves you and they're supporting you, and your agents and managers, they're, hey, let's roll. And if you're not booking
As long as you're
jobs,
up here.
if you're
Yeah.
not booking jobs, and it's kind of like you can't get a return phone call.
Mhm.
And one day I get a phone call. And I from my agent said, hey, you need to get in here. You just booked a part on a new television series. I won't say the name of that, but it was on HBO, and it was going to be a big series. And I was like, wait, what? And they were like, yeah, they saw you at the action, because I did like weekend, like little acting 2-part man series kind of things where agents would show up and audience would show up, and that kind of thing. And I guess a casting director showed up at that and casted me directly from watching me that weekend, which just never happens in the industry.
That's
right.
wild.
Like I mean, typically on a part this size, this big, you would have walked in, it would have been, at least 3 or 4 auditions, right? You'd walked in, there was 1,000 guys, then narrow it down to, whatever, 20, and then down to 10, and then and then you do an actual screening. And so I was just absolutely blown away. And I said, I can't believe they casted me like this. And she said, look, don't ask any questions. Just get in there and sign the contract. And I kind of looked up to heaven, and I was just like, all right, thanks God. Like, man, that's the one I needed, So I get all the way in there, and she's like, the contract's there, and she's like, just, she's all wanting to celebrate, and I want to celebrate too, but I'm kind of like, can I look at the part?
Can I at least read this?
Yeah, can I at least see what the character is and kind of look at the part? And so she kind of slides the side over to me, and I start reading through it, and it was a part, but it was to play a gay guy. Right. And it was just no judgment there whatsoever. But it was just a moment where I'm reading the script, and it just didn't resonate with where I was in my life, and I thought, here we are, I've got to make this quick decision on, if this is,
can we say test?
Yeah. Big time test, right. For me at that moment. And I kind of just I go in there like all high, and man, this is awesome. And this is the next move I needed. And then my stomach drops, and I'm reading this going, my integrity doesn't line up with the character and the project moving forward.
Right.
And so I just kind of slid it back to her, and I just said, I'm sorry, I can't do this. I have to reject this part.
I want to talk more about that.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
We know prevention is always the best medicine, but our healthcare system can't prevent disease. It only helps when you're already sick. At Kraft Body Scan, we find cancer, heart disease, and other health problems before symptoms appear. And that early detection could be the key to saving your life. Take your health into your own hands. Schedule a couple's heart and lung scan today for only $149. Visit togetherwescan.com.
Okay, before the break, you didn't line up with the part. Mm-hmm. What next?
Yeah, so I basically just I declined the part, and she pretty quickly just said, if you make this decision, you'll never work here again, and you can walk out the door.
They actually say that.
Yeah. In this situation, they did.
This was your agent that said that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And man, I just kind of walked out and kind of head down, and just like, well, that's it. I mean, it was kind of a line that I felt like I wasn't, kind of a line in the sand that I was drawing. And at that time I was just kind of like, everybody around me was just like, listen, man, you're kind of all in on the spiritual thing, it seems like. And you're great in front of crowds. I think you should be a pastor or something, And so kind of just was like, yeah, again, just, but again, it's, where my mind is. It's not just like a pastor. It's like, okay, it's mega church. It's hundreds of thousands of people. Right. It's this, right?
Dreaming big.
That was never my problem,
Right. Sounds familiar.
So I leave LA, and there's there's many events, but anyways, through I think a leading and a guidance from God, I find myself in Atlanta, Georgia, which I'd also never been to and lived before, to finish up some schooling, because I was going to go back and finish the 14 credit hours and then go to seminary. Okay, that was just like the next common sense play, even though school was not really my thing. And I enrolled in Bible college, and here I show up, basically 25 years of age, in freshman orientation, going, what in the hell am I doing? Like, this is crazy, And of course, my family wanted to be supportive, but were concerned on many levels, and so listen, it led to the right direction. I met my wife there, Alicia, and we've been married for 23 years.
Let's go.
She's an incredible woman, and we have four amazing kids as well. And so I end up going into full-time ministry. I start a men's ministry, and that it kind of starts taking off, and ended up becoming associate pastor of a church. And then somewhere through that place, I knew my heart was right, but I just was like, I feel like I'm still called to build business, and it was more than just standing up and ministering or preaching or sharing or whatever. It was like, there's something more going on. And I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
I mean, I think people need to hear that, right? I mean, I'm 26 at this time, 27, 28, still going, I still don't know what that is.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget this. I'm sitting there one day kind of just like moping around like, all right, what am I doing? And I was tired of being broke. That was another piece of it.
That's fair.
Yeah. And And all of a sudden, I turn on this TV show, and it's like the first ever Flip This House kind of show.
Oh,
Okay, I don't even know if it was HGTV at the time, but it was like one of those shows. And I'm just like getting lost in this show. And I am just, I guess, stupid or arrogant enough to think this. But when I got done watching the show, I go, I think I can do that. I think I can do that. Now, why I would think that, I have no idea. I have no previous real estate background. On my mom's side, my grandfather and uncle, they were big real estate developers in Kentucky, but we've never had those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
It was never like there was a torch passed down or anything like that. And so I don't know how this happened exactly. I'll just make this fast, but I ended up going to a local bank. I think I had about $100 in my pocket. I found a piece of real estate, convinced this banker to give me a construction loan, and he did. And I put all the sweat equity in myself. My wife's cleaning the cabinets and I'm painting the floors. Just lipstick on a pig, right? It's basically the first one was just that's all it was. And put it on the market, sold it, made $7,000, and I thought, I'm rich.
Hallelujah!
I'm rich.
I
did it. And then man, I kind of got the bug from there, and I started diving in deeper and studying. I never had any formal training. I mean, there's maybe a book or two I'm reading here and there, but it was like I never had a mentor, I never had a coach.
So
That's wild.
for clarification, when you saw that show, it was the piece about flipping the houses that you felt like you could do. It didn't have to do with hosting a show like that or anything.
No, nothing like that at all. No,
I didn't know
I'm a
if
big dreamer,
combining
but
your acting.
I couldn't see anything like that at that time. I mean, you got to think, and we'll get back to that part of the story. But when I left LA, I'd always wanted it so bad that it was kind of a laying it down thing for me. And so I wanted to get as far away from acting, modeling, anything I could. Funny enough, God has a sense of humor. I end up in Atlanta, which is the film capital of the world now.
Yeah,
okay,
it really is.
So that's a whole nother story, which we'll tackle at some point. But no, it was just honestly, I think what it really was, it wasn't the art of the real estate piece. It was taking something broken and seeing it come to life. And that's always kind of been a thing for me. I see humans like that. I see businesses like that. I see, people. It's just that's kind of a passion, right? Is taking what's lost and seeing something, become great. And so so then one led to 2 houses, 2 led to 5 houses. Started doing 10 houses at a time, and it just kind of quickly started growing, and was becoming better at it, right? Just polishing the craft. And at this point, I'm not doing any of the work myself, right? I'm building crews and building the models and partnering with agents and all of those kind of things. And then if I can segue to this, 2008 is upon us.
We're familiar, yeah.
Okay, and so I had about 2 to 3 years where I was pretty successful, finally building a little nest egg, finally kind of getting some things in the right place. And of course this crash happens, now I want to say 9 construction loans at the time. Okay. Wow. Now all of these are meant to be flipped houses. They're not meant to be long-term rentals or anything like that. And there's one way to do a piece of real estate where if it is a rental, you might not put the, granite countertops in it. You might put the Formica countertops in it, right?
For where?
The lower appliance package, whatever. I mean, it's a long-term model, not a, hey, I want to wow somebody to buy this house immediately. Yeah. And so, but that's what I'd done to these houses. I'd put the top of the line of everything that we had at the time into the houses, and then boom, the banks start calling. Which was really unique because I'd never missed a payment. And I get it because, like anybody that I knew that was in the industry, they were just jumping ship. They were like, here's our properties, here's our keys, and, filing Chapter 11 and all of that. And, oh man, just all over the place. And it was just like if you were in it and you're watching it, you're just like, what is going on right now?
I've not heard this from the perspective of somebody actually in.
Oh, it was wild. Well, listen, the people are scared, the buyers are scared, the sellers are scared, the banks are for sure scared.
The whole country was scared. I remember,
And it was just like, and I'm talking to the bank like, listen, I'm a man of integrity. Like I'm going to pay this note. Just settle down. Give me some time. Let me figure it out. And right about that time that happened, I had my second double lung collapse. And ended up having a lung surgery, a spontaneous pneumothorax, which was completely random.
So this was the second time that happened?
Yeah, I had a lung collapse almost exactly the day a year before.
Oh,
and in that time, they just kind of put a tube down. I spent 5 days in the hospital, put a tube down my chest, reinflated my lung, and kind of said, hope this never happens again. And I was like,
that from trauma, or how does that happen?
Well, funny enough, I didn't know this, but it's the poster child are kind of tall, white, thin males. And
Really?
yeah, interesting enough. And I was doing a lot of fasting at the time, and somehow my body just kind of reacted to it,
Okay.
and I'd lost enough weight to where it kind of did that. So the first time it happened, I was like, God, that'll never happen again. That's crazy. I've been an athlete my whole life, worked out, and sure enough, the exact day, 1 year later, it happened again. The exact day, 1 year later. And so this time, obviously, I had to have lung surgery, and it took me about 6 months to recover my health. So my sweet wife was, kind of taking care of me bedside, but it was you're talking about a dark night of the soul, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was just a very lonely season. The market's crashing. I'm seeing the what I think is a little bit of a decent savings account just gradually
Your
wither away
house of
every single
cards
month.
was
It was crumbling,
Yeah.
100%, and so I'm calling doctors, asking them to, give me grace on, medical payments, and I'll do cash out of pocket, and, what does that look like? And I'm calling the banks going, don't foreclose on me. Everything's okay. I'm good. We'll get through this. And I'll never forget this. I got down to about $5,000 in the bank account, and I was just like, I looked at my wife, and I was just like, that's it. And it's kind of like one of these scenes out of a movie where you just kind of take the bandages off you and you're like, I got to get back out. I got to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what the heck am I going to do? The real estate was over. And I put all my trust and kind of confidence in building that education. And that was gone. And I called a buddy. I'll never forget this because I've always had a thing for sales. That's always been pretty natural to me. And I called him. He had a roofing company. And I said, hey, man, would you mind hiring me? I said, I just need to get out and make some money. I was like, we're down to little, and I don't want to foreclose on these properties. And he was like, are you kidding me? I'd love to have you as a salesman. This is crazy. Are you sure this is what you want to do? And I was like, I don't even have time to think. I just got to move. I got to move.
Yeah.
And before I know it, he shows up like day one. He's like, listen, all right, I'm going to show you all the ins and outs and blah, blah, blah. He goes, we're going to do that for about 3 weeks. I go, nope, we're going to do that for 1 day. You're going to teach me for 1 day. And I was like, I got a wife and kids to take care of. I got a truck. I was like, get me a pair of roof boots. I was like, tell me what to say, and I'm off.
Yep.
And 2 or 3 days later, I'm just dialing for dollars. I'm knocking on doors, pulling into subdivisions. And by the grace of God, within the first month, I was tripling what every other salesman was doing in the roofing industry. And that just kept on kind of increasing. It's so funny. They used to do sales meetings every Wednesday, and they really, I really need you there. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm not going. I need to
I need to be in the field.
I'm in the field.
Yeah.
I'm in the field, And
how old were you at this point?
I would have been, I would say, close to 30 at this point. Yeah. And so, yeah, so I did that for just about 14 months and was able to put food on the table and keep so now at this point, I finished all the properties. Now they all became rentals, right? So I was able to get renters in all the properties just to kind of just not really making money, just enough to pay the mortgage and the interest. And that was good enough for me at the time. And then I guess it was about 14 months in, I kind of saw the market kind of turning for the positive. And I kind of had a reshift in my mind, and I thought, nothing against banks, but I was like, they kind of did me dirty, and I'm the guy like trying to make the payments and do all the things. And so I kind of lost confidence in that model. And I really knew at that point cash was going to be king, like we got to find investors that are willing to, really go all in on this. And, talked to a friend of mine and at church, it was a real estate agent, and we kind of said, hey, this might be kind of a good fit. He knew the brokerage side of things, and I knew the flipping house part and, the renovations.
Sure.
I had all the crews and all that. I said, why don't we maybe kind of dabble into that? And I said, but look, the only way we can really do this out the gate is wholesale. I was like, because we don't have enough capital to kind of get this thing moving.
Sure.
What investor is going to trust us? I mean, who are we, right? That here's $1 million. Go ahead and start buying a bunch of properties.
Right.
And this is a crazy story, man. I hadn't thought about this in a long time, but we went out and we contracted 24 or 27 townhomes in this little community. And when I want to say this used to be a nicer community, but everything had gone down to nothing. And we picked these things up for, I want to say, $13,000 a unit.
Oh,
okay.
Wow.
And we contracted 27 of them. Now, mind you, we're working with the agent. You gotta give proof of funds and all. When you submit something to an agent, it's like an offer. It's like they want all the things, and we kind of maneuvered around that. And then they wanted $10,000 worth of earnest money, which we didn't have. And this was on. Well, we kind of did, but it's like kind of all we had. It's like, do we want to take that risk? And this was on a Friday. And so we locked up the contract. They gave it to us, and we had to have the earnest money, and they gave us grace to have it in by 5 o'clock on Monday night. Next thing you know, we have hired basically a clown to stand out with an open house sign with balloons. Okay. And all weekend long, I was calling any and every investor that I thought might possibly be interested in picking up a townhouse here and there. And it was the craziest weekend of my life. But by Sunday night, I had reassigned all 27 townhouses to 6 different investors. Okay, some had 4, some had 5, and I'm giving
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
Good.
I do have one question to pause there.
Please.
How's your wife through this whole thing?
That's a good question.
My wife is. I think she just knew what she was signing up for.
Okay.
God bless her soul, and she is. She's very supportive, and she. I think believes in me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And believed in like, hey, you can do this.
He makes his mind up about
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it was kind of one of those things. Like, there's no doubt. You'd have to ask her, right? But I'm sure in that moment she's thinking, oh God, here we go.
Here we go again. Yeah.
Like we just get stable again, and now it's back to this or it's back to that. And so she's, I've put her, bless her heart, I've put her on a pretty wild ride. You know?
I get that eye roll from my wife from time to time. With the oh no, please no.
You know what that looks like,
please
right?
Don't. I want to. We got to take a quick break, but I want to come back to the assigning of properties because I've got tons of questions.
Okay.
But let's get through this break.
Sure.
If you're a wellness or fitness pro looking for a space that truly fits the way you work, check out B2 Wellness Suites. With locations in Brentwood and Mount Juliet, B2 offers private suites, shared offices, and day rentals, all in a calm, welcoming environment designed for our industry. But it's more than just a space. It's a community of like-minded professionals who support, inspire, and grow together. Learn more at b2suites.com.
So you're assigning houses like a car salesman's assigning cars.
Basically.
For the listeners, help them a little bit with understanding how wholesaling works.
Yeah.
Real quick.
Yeah. So there's, it's totally legal. All right.
Yeah.
In some regards, there's a great component to it, and I'll explain that in a minute.
Yeah.
But basically, it's just you acquire a piece of real estate, and you can assign it over to whoever you want, and that's part of the upfront agreement or the contract. In a typical wholesale fashion, let's say you lock it in at this price, you reassign the contract, for an additional $20,000.
Right.
All right. Then basically, technically, you're supposed to close on the property before. Kind of do back-to-back closings is basically what it is. Yeah. So it's just it's a very normal thing in the industry. You buy it, then you turn around, you sell it the same day, right? And you just take your profit, and everybody's happy. Yep. Basically. So my unique position with that is, I'm probably sharing too much now, but
Real Estate Secrets brought to you by.
Yeah, exactly. We knew at the time that I want to say the contract was, let's call it, close to $500,000, right? So we know we don't have the financing to get to the closing table on $500,000, but we've got all these assigned contracts, and this is just crazy because this is still 21 days out, 30 days out from a closing, right? And you've got your piece of it where that agent, that brokerage is still hoping that you close, right? Mm-hmm. And then of course they don't know we've already assigned these over to 5 or 6 other investors, and we're hoping God they close, right?
It's volatile.
Oh, it's extremely volatile, and I don't necessarily encourage this across the board. I mean, we finally got out of that. I've
done 2 of those in my life, and they were terrifying.
Oh, I'm telling you.
That sounds like 48 hours of.
Yeah. Well, so long story short, now we got the attorney involved, and everything's on the up and up with the attorney and all that. And of course, attorneys don't operate in gray areas. And I just said, look, man, we don't have the money to close on this. I just need to be upfront. We don't have the money to close on this, but we got all these investors. Oh, and by the way, by Sunday night, I collected $15,000 of non-refundable earnest money. All right. So we gave them the $10,000. We got our $5,000 back, non-refundable. So if they walk, whatever, we just solid. We just got $5,000 there, and so the attorneys ended up agreeing that if we could get the investors to basically wire the money a day before the closing, that technically through paperwork, there shouldn't be a deficiency there,
Gotcha.
That the money's there to close, so on and so forth.
Kind of showing a delay.
And yeah, exactly. But basically we're both signing at the same time.
Correct.
And one by one that next day, just praying to God each investor showed up, right? Because it's like a 30-minute increments. We got one done. but it's not done until you get the other 4, I mean, it was wild.
Yeah. What I love too is that it was a broker that you had partnered with to do this.
Yes.
the like-mindedness for y'all to be all in on this together.
No, it's crazy. And he was a great guy. And we ended up, doing, like 800 properties together, and we built a company called Investor Network. And, but anyways, I'll never forget that we got that last investor in. It was like, we just felt like we robbed a bank. It was like, what the heck just happened?
Let's go. Bourbon, anyone?
Yeah, exactly. And, and we got a really nice payday out of that. And that just kind of, I was like, well, okay, but this can be done,
Right.
kind of just enough to kind of build your faith again that, hey, we can get back in this. And my gosh, I think for probably 6-8 months, we wholesaled quite a few properties. And then we just said, hey, cash is going to be king. And just another kind of God story. If somebody called us up, big real estate magazine at the time, and kind of like you, just, hey, can you tell me your story? And I started telling them this kind of comeback story, and they're like, whoa, this is much bigger than just a phone call or an article.
Yeah.
We're going to put you on the front cover of this magazine, and we want you to tell the whole 3-print story about a comeback story. And so we did that. And I mean, like overnight, we just started getting phone calls from investors all over the world, just kind of throwing money at us. And so
I hate to cut you off, but I want to go back a little bit. Like, where were you with your, we talked about confidence and, maybe pseudo cockiness in your early 20s.
Yeah.
There's been an incredible amount of transition. And I can tell from my faith and what I know to be true about my faith that you were being prepped for this.
Yeah.
Based on what you had gone through in LA leading up to seminary and then, doing that journey at the church. Where were you with your self-esteem at that moment when you were like, I am going to do this with this real estate agent, even though this is incredibly risky?
Yeah.
Were you confident?
Well, I can now at 47, I can say, no, absolutely. I wasn't confident, but I had just enough ego in me.
Well, your through line, you've made the statement a few different times during this that you said, I think I can do that.
Yeah.
Right.
I think I can do that.
Yeah.
Which doesn't sound like cockiness. It
No,
sounds like
it sounds
I got enough.
like,
I got enough know-how.
I trust myself enough to know.
Right.
And I have enough instinct.
And enough
I think
elbow
I can do
grease.
that.
Anything's possible.
Yeah. So I would say, was I confident? No, but I was so big into mind over matter, power of positive thinking.
Competent, yes.
Yes. Competent. Yes. But as far as like, did I feel confident in who I was? I mean, and that's what's amazing. Again, I think about some entrepreneurs, right? I mean, outside of, the show, right? The social media platforms but behind the scenes, I mean, I don't know about, I can't speak for everybody. Even me today at 47, people look at my life and go, I can't believe you accomplished all these things. And I still think I'm not quite there.
Right.
I'm not quite there.
We had a conversation, we talked last week about with the way that we do things, it appears that,
right.
Wow, you took this huge leap. You can do anything. And it looks like all the confidence in the world.
Yep.
And we talked about how much fear is behind that, but you don't stop and freeze because of the fear. You move with the fear to make these decisions.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like that is the life that you
lived. You press through, and then of course you're building momentum in your life, right? And you're building this kind of foundation of, like you said, faith, really, right? It's like, and it's imagine like the stress that I carried at 22. I look back on that, I'm like, that's not stress.
Can I at least go back there?
But then the stress at 30, it's like, oh my God, and then you look back and you go, that's nothing, right? And then now I'm carrying a whole different level of stress at 47. Running multiple businesses.
What do you mean? It doesn't go away?
For me, it hasn't.
Well, I'm 45. You're not giving me much hope.
Well, you got 2 years to figure this out, man.
I'm 51, and I can tell you it's still there. So.
Yeah, it's just it's a monopoly board, right? Yeah. And there's new properties and there's new. So it's like I never felt like I was built to play it safe. Mm-hmm. Now I'm very risk adverse. I like to know I like to have an idea of what I'm doing, but very much most of my life, what I've built, it's Field of Dreams, right? It's you build it and you hope they come.
Right.
Do you feel like as you've gotten older that you get less risk averse, or that your experience makes you a little more?
Let me tell you that part of the story.
All right, let's go.
So
let's transition.
So we ended up, I was in a partnership for, 7-8 years. We probably flipped and wholesaled 700, 800 properties, something in that ballpark, and ended up doing, fairly well. And knock on wood, never lost an investor money. Of course, I could write a whole book on the stories, right?
No, I bet.
If you can imagine. But we really, kept well, and he was a good partner, and we're still friends today. And but we felt like, there needed to be a separation. Just at some point, it wasn't making sense. And then really we were like, we've got our own capital now. I don't need investors, to put the money up. I'm just going to kind of go. And I went more kind of mom and pop style with my wife. So at that point, the kids were a little bit older. I was like, hey, what do you think about getting your real estate license? And you can kind of be my agent. I know all the ins and outs. We'll kind of work together, and which is scary in a lot of regards. We made it through barely without killing each other. But she was an awesome agent, and then so I probably flipped an additional 200 and some homes just with her and I, right? So now, somewhere through the career, I'd built about 25 or 6 rentals, long-term rentals, okay? And they weren't sexy. They were double wides. They were this, that, but they were cash cows, right? I mean, they were profiting big time on these. And I finally got to one point, and this was this was before Airbnb was popular, Vrbo was popular. And I kind of looked at my wife, Dan, and said, look, what do you think about us kind of selling all that inventory out, and let's just kind of relax a little bit, rest a little bit, buy a few vacation homes, right? And I thought, that's good for us. It's kind of a win. They're going to appreciate, it's a nice tax shelter. And so we did that, not knowing that we'd end up building a really cool short-term rental business. And so we did that, and then about 6 months after, you put all this time and attention in the property, and you visit it 10 times, you're kind of like, it's kind of nostalgia's over for me. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, why don't we make a little money on this now, And so that's where
I see a lot of you and me.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
me and you. Whatever.
Okay, tackled, conquered. What
next? Yeah,
that is the story of my life.
Yeah.
Right?
Can't stop.
And so we built these short-term rentals up, and everything was just going honestly really well in our life. I mean, as far as like on paper, and we're still flipping houses. Just bought a new house. Kids were settled. Everybody was good, and all of a sudden, I had this moment. And again, I'll call it maybe another dark night of the soul. I'm not sure. I would have been 42 at the time. And I woke up 3 o'clock in the morning and just had this absolute fear and panic on me. And I have no idea where this is coming from. And I can't really get sleep the rest of the night. And I'm kind of doing all the things that I do to walk myself off the ledge.
Where's it coming from?
Yeah.
Pinpoint?
Yeah. I'm praying. I'm reading my self-help books. I'm like, this is weird. I don't know what this is, And it's not like 2008 just happened, right? There's no reason to panic here. And then the second night, 3 o'clock in the morning, boom, wake up again. Just like that, absolute fear and panic. Third day this happens, okay? And I'm kind of walking around like a zombie at this point because I can't figure out what all these emotions are about. And my wife comes out one day and she's like, what's going on with you? And I said, I don't know. I said, I'm not really doing that good. I don't know what's going on. And she said, well, look, let me take the day off and let's just kind of sit here and we'll kind of talk through it. And she's really great at that. And so we do that, and I get halfway through it. And I think like most men carry, I can't speak for you as a female, but most men carry this weight, right? Mm-hmm. This burden to be the provider, to be everything, to be this, to carry that. And I've also kind of lived in my own shadow of other people looking at my life going, this guy can do anything. Where there's a will, there's a way, right? But yet something internally is telling me that, not that it's fake, but I'm not as strong as
it creates a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I'm not as strong as they think I am. Yeah. And I think a little bit of it was that. And I get halfway through this conversation, she's like, just get out of your mind. If you can do anything right now, what would you want to do? Just name it right now. And I was like, honestly, without even thinking, I go, honestly, I want to sell everything. I want to sell the company. I want to sell all the rental properties. I just want to start over. I want to recalibrate. I want to start over. And she was like sell our personal house too? And I was like, no, yes, maybe. I don't know. I was like, I want to reset. And my wife, being the sweet soul she is, about 10 minutes later, literally 10 seconds later, she goes, all right, let's do it.
Oh,
And just her saying that.
Yeah.
I felt this weight come off me. Okay, just her saying that. Now, in fairness, I'm like, no, don't say that. Like, I'm crazy right now. Like,
you're supposed to be keeping me in check.
I'm a madman right now, right? Like, you're the only one stable in this conversation. Like, please don't say that.
You just let me down.
Please don't co-sign. Am I crazy?
Right.
Yes.
But because she allowed me to do that and have those emotions, I got to the end of it and I thought, wow, I really did feel lighter, And then it was like, okay, well, that's an option. And I kind of prayed about it for a few days, and I came back to her and I was like, I feel like I've got confirmation. We're selling everything. Mm-hmm. And it took us about 3 or 4 months. I had another 5 or 6 flip houses that we were finishing out, and we ended up contracting all of our rental properties to sell those.
And no plan beyond that at this point.
When I literally say starting over, in my mind, I go, I have no idea what's going to happen in the future. Like, I don't know if I want to go back into real estate. I don't know. Now, there's another side piece to this. Sorry, man, this is all over the place.
No, it's fine.
You're great.
You got to take a break?
I want to take a break because I want to get to that side in a second. I know we're a little early on the break, but we're going to take it anyway. So we'll be right back.
Perfect.
I hated to cut you off, but
it's all good, man.
I had to get off the microphone and wipe my tears. We're back. We're good. If you could pick up where you left off, that'd be huge.
Yeah. So we sold everything at that time, other than our personal house, and the whole thought was we were going to recalibrate. I was going to take 6 months off, kind of take another little walkabout in my life, and
this was 5 years ago.
This would have been close to 5 years ago.
Okay.
All right, and then I was going to take my kids I took my wife and kids to Antigua for 30 days on a vacation.
Wow.
We'd never done anything quite like that before, and they're used to Dad on the phone and working deals and everything. It was kind of like a testimony to God's goodness, and also just it's a reset, guys.
Yeah.
And I want to really pour back into you guys. And so we were out there, and I said that 6 months lasted about 10 days. Being the crazy ADHD entrepreneur.
The true entrepreneur came out.
Yeah. And
weird. Didn't see that coming.
And I'm on vacation, and really just like have no idea what the next steps is. Now, just to go back, if you'll bring me back to this in just a minute, I started a film company close to 18 years ago when I was in Atlanta. Okay. And just remind me, I'll kind of close out that. So I do have a little hope that those things are going to start kind of like I'm going to start doing more film stuff in my life, but I didn't know how it was going to play out. There was no guarantees, anything like that. So I'm 10 days on this vacation, and I get an email from a friend of mine that we went to high school together, lost touch, just came back in touch a few years ago through some real estate transactions. And he said, "Hey, man, I know you're on vacation. I know you're on the sabbatical. I don't want to interrupt that, but would you look at this?" Right? And I get real estate things all the time in email. I'm like, delete, whatever. And so I was like, yeah, I'll look at it. So I click on it, and it's this old abandoned Holiday Inn hotel in Bardstown, Kentucky. Okay. And immediately it was like something kind of leapt inside of me, because my dad was, again, bankers. And I remember, having bankers conventions where I would go there as a little boy. So I'd see this property, and I'd forgot about this. Like I just went on the Bourbon Trail for the first time, just like 4 or 5 years before that.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Even though I'd grown up there. Yeah. And of course it's grown astronomically since then. And so I don't know, it was like something left inside of me, and I didn't know what it was, but I thought, that's the only thing I really haven't done in real estate is the hotel space. And I love hospitality. It's always been a thing for me, right? To see others well and love people well, and
that kind of brings it all together for you.
It does, yeah.
It does, yeah. I mean, I think that's another part of the ministry piece, if you will, And so I said, look, all right, put this, offer this much, do it like this, put a long due diligence, because man, I can't even be talking about this, I got to go.
Don't let my wife hear me.
I got another 40 days of vacation, and then I'll come back, and then we can possibly look at it, one of those things. And it's kind of a funny story. It took me about 3 days to work up the nerve, but my wife, I got her a few mimosas on a breakfast one morning, kind of got her hopped up, get her feeling good.
Let me guess, she was ahead of you, wasn't she?
Well, not exactly, not exactly. I mean, normally she is, but I just said, "Hey, you feeling good? Is everybody good? Everybody, this look at the ocean, isn't this beautiful?" And then it was like, "Hey, I just want to maybe throw something out to you." I said, what do you think about us buying an abandoned hotel in bourbon country and doing like kind of a Napa Valley of the South experience, do this big bourbon hotel? My wife, she takes one drink, she puts it down. I'll never forget this. She looks up and kind of rolls her eyes. She's like, "Honestly, do whatever you want to do, but don't think I'm ever moving there." And I was like, well, that was like a win for me. I was like, well, no, we're not going to move there. That's crazy. We're settled in Georgia. I mean, that's all my wife would ever know. I was like, no, we love our, our friends, our community. Like, no, we're not going to move there. And then of course, fast forward ahead, obviously, nobody cares about your baby quite like you do. And so we started this journey, ended up buying the hotel, wanted to design it into kind of a one-stop shop into the Bourbon Trail. And we've just recently opened 3 months ago.
You did.
It took us 4 years to complete that project from, conception to finish, which was crazy. And then about 2 years into it, we realized, because Magnolia Network and HGTV were kind of talking about picking up a TV show about my wife and I and building the hotel and, the kind of this come back home story, and which is another crazy thing that happened, whatever. So we ended up shooting one episode on In With the Old Magnolia Network, ended up deciding not to do kind of a longer term play because we were already well into the hotel. And it wasn't about me trying to pick up a Flip This House show anymore. It's like those days are over. Yeah. But doing a hotel would have been really cool. Like if they would have really got from the beginning to the end, but TV moves so slow, it just never kind of worked out. So, about 2 years into it, I looked at my wife one day and once again kind of had one of those moments, and she's like, I think we're supposed to go to Kentucky. And I was like,
so it came from her.
Yeah, it did. And I was like, really? I was like, are you sure about
Tell
that?
me more.
Because I could never have asked.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. I was sweating about this because I was like, I can't do this one, And I've asked her to do too much, and she said, but under one condition. I've kind of followed your dumbass for all these years. I kind of want my thing now. And, kids are older. We had a son in college at the time. And she said, I've always wanted to have a women's fashion boutique store. I'd really like to dive into that. And I said, great. Let's find a building. That's a whole nother kind of crazy God story because there was no real estate available in downtown Bardstown. But in 72 hours, we had contracted the most beautiful architectural piece, I think, in the community, one of the old buildings. And then we ended up renovating that in that same season to become Caden Lake in the front, which is her women's boutique store, and then Liam Ash in the back, which is a high-end cocktail emporium. And Caden Lake are our daughter's names, and Liam Ash are our son's names.
Best Black Manhattan on the planet.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. And then we ended up basically building out the apartment upstairs, which we lived in for 6 months through that transition. So it's just been a wild ride. So let me land the plane with this one little last piece, and it's just I have to say this because this was so near and dear. But I walked away from the film industry thinking I'm never going back. I have no desire, and of course I was just trying to do that to protect my own heart, right? Yeah. Just because I was like, it's never going to happen, and felt inspired by God one night that He wanted to take me back in the industry, not from acting this time, but from a producing standpoint. And so I started a company called 10 Films, and I felt that He was going to give me these kind of supernatural biography kind of storylines of men and women who've done kind of amazing things, and the world's really never seen their story, on a big scale. And about a month later, as I'm kind of processing this, I had a conference that we were going to go to in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and we're day 2 in this conference, and I've got all these speakers I want to listen to, and I'm like all in, and my wife's kind of like, I'm just here because I want a vacation, I don't want I want 2-3 days without kids, and she looks at me one afternoon and she said, what are you doing? I said, well, we got at 2:00, we got to go over and listen to the speech. She goes, well, you go do that. I'm going over to Hershey. And I go, wait, what? No, you can't go to Hershey. We're not eating chocolate. We're here for a reason.
She's great.
Oh yeah, no. And she's like, you're going to go there. I'm going to Hershey. And I was like, son of a gun. So I'm kicking rocks, and I'm soft enough to be like, I can't let my wife just I don't want her to die or get kidnapped, right. And trust me, she's tougher than me, but still it's like, fine, let's go to Hershey, And so I'm kicking rocks the entire time, so frustrated, trying to keep it in, but agitated big time, right? And she's eating chocolate and she's taking pictures and she's doing all the thing. And then she ends up buying us 2 tickets to get on the trolley, right? As we're leaving. So you get on this trolley and everybody's singing and dancing, and you have a guide and he's taking you through the downtown Hershey district, and everybody's just having a blast, right? And I'm hearing this man's story, and it's like the ADD. I go somewhere. I am out of body. I'm seeing a movie about this man's life while I'm listening to this. And by the end of it, I'm emotional. I've got the tears coming down. I'm looking out the window. Everybody else is eating chocolate, dancing, laughing, blah blah blah, and I can't stop tears, right? Man. So my wife kind of looks at me and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I'm really not. I don't know what's going on right now." So we get off the bus. We end up driving home to from Pennsylvania to Kentucky at the time to pick up our kids because my parents were babysitting them. And I just, somewhere in that car ride, I just got an epiphany. And my being naive like I am, I'm like, we're going to make a movie about this man's life. And she said, let's do it. 18 years ago. Okay, 18 years ago. And so I come home, I call a buddy of mine who's in the military, who's a Green Beret, and I said, dude, I think you're supposed to direct this. And I said, but we're going to write it together. And so I bought 5 books on the life of Milton Hershey. I sent them to him overseas. He reads those, I read those, and then boom, going back to that lung collapse. Right at the time this happens, he gets shot in war, gets a Purple Heart, gets sent home, and I have my second double lung collapse. So I'm bedside. So the first 3 months of that, while all the real estate stuff crashing, we wrote the Hershey script together, the original Hershey script. And that's what started that. Okay.
That's crazy.
Now I'm thankful to say, because I got a bunch of horror stories I could tell you along the way, because I wanted to give up many, many times in that project, that we just filmed it this last summer. And Hershey is 100% behind us and supportive. We got some amazing cast.
Insane.
Finn Whitrock playing Milton Hershey, Alexander Daddario playing Kitty, Mark Waters, director, David Constable's in the movie. Got some other great producing partners that came alongside to, get it to where it finally needed to be. And it's incredible. So that comes out in 2026. Hershey's putting a lot of money in marketing and advertising. But what's crazy is when that happened, talking about dreaming to entrepreneurs, right, that you're dreaming way too small, is while I said I'm going to do a movie on the life of Milton Hershey, I went into a vision. I saw a Hershey chocolate bar, and I saw half of that chocolate bar being advertised like the movie poster. And that's what's going to happen,
That's really
this
cool.
coming year. So,
That's so cool.
so it's a wild life. I don't advise everybody to go this way.
So do you feel like your big pivot point in your adult life was when you had that 3 a.m. something's wrong, something's got to change? Do you know, have you looked back and explored what you feel like the trigger for that huge shift in your direction was?
You know what I finally mark it up to? I think it was a divine interruption, right? I think it was a divine interruption. I mean, I think I'd gotten pretty comfortable in my life. Not that I'm a glutton for punishment, but I think I'd just gotten pretty comfortable in my life. And I think that that my creator knew that there was some more work to be done. And it just caused enough turmoil and tension in my soul to go, what is it? What's going on? And I think there's a laying down in life, right? That we always, and I don't think that'll be the last time I lay it down again. I just, the way that I'm kind of built and kind of is, but it's just like, I think there was I don't want to call it another test, but something similar to, do you trust me? And what does this next thing look like? And so I did that in a moment where obviously we had money in the bank because we sold properties. And so that's a little nicer, right? To know you got at least that cushion, but to basically go, I don't know if I'm ever going to make a film, and I've put 18 years in this. I don't know if I'm ever going to go back to real estate again because I'm just kind of burnt out and exhausted by all that. And just kind of like, all right, I'm going to take 6 months off, which I couldn't do, but
what I wrote on the board in there, live into the answers. I think he is the epitome of that statement.
Yeah, I would agree. Is there,
thank you.
Well, there's got to be, like, I'm just zooming out on your life and trying to take it all in, but there is, with the Lord telling you, hey, this is what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Right. Cause that's what's going on.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
18 years go by. This movie comes out next year, which is not that far away at this point. Are you just dying to know why it's going to be? Like, what's the purpose?
You think about that a lot, right? You get to the end of your life and you think, God, how much of this was just me? How much of this was divine intervention? How much? And you hope that it was just a co-laboring process, right? It was just and I think there's a lot of seasons where, I've always kind of, well, let me say this. I was always so worried about missing God or going the wrong direction.
Sure.
And I finally had to come to this place in my life to where I said, you know my heart, right? I want to bring honor to your name, and I want to provide for my family, and I want to, build these things. And it kind of got to the point where it's like, listen, I can't sit around and pray all day long about what the next move is. All right. So I'm just going to take that gut feeling. And whatever that is, I'm not only do I believe you'll bless it, but I want to co-labor with you on it, and that's kind of really been, I think, the last 25 years of my life.
There's two whys there, right? There's your why, which and then there's the Lord's.
That's right, exactly.
And his ways aren't our ways.
Yeah,
I know enough to know that. Like in as much as this is an entrepreneurial journey, it is a faith journey. I think every entrepreneur has to work through their faith in order to push to the next level. So just on the basis of that, I can't wait to see what this movie does. Like, or what it does, what it inspires, and how it inspires others.
Do you have that feeling internally of there's more, there's still a whole lot of work that I have ahead of me?
I do. And a lot of it is still just personal development work, right? Mm-hmm. It's peeling off the layers, right? It's becoming happier. It's becoming more whole. It's becoming more peaceful. It's becoming more giving.
Are you with that? Do you have, how is the balance of time with that?
Yeah,
because that's every entrepreneur struggles with that balance of time.
Very, very much like right? Mm-hmm. It's it was probably the hardest last 2 years of my life, mm-hmm. making the move to Kentucky, doing the TV show, building out an entire commercial building, flipping 2 properties, living upstairs with 2 dogs and 5 of us, right, in 2,000 square foot apartment, leaving everything that we had that was safe, to finishing, the hotel, which was a massive, situation, $29 million project that we, took under with also good partners, and while finishing the film. So here's the irony, and I don't know how this all worked, but all these years we're working on this, and in the exact same week, we have the grand opening in the hotel, and the movie starts in Pennsylvania, the same week. Right. So again, the next 3 months were just wild, completing the film, getting the project done. And you know me, though, now I'm bored.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to ask.
What's next?
Well, it's just like those are behind me. And it was like, you took that 3 weeks off or 4 weeks off. And it's like, oh, Jesus, But now it's kind of like, all right, well. And so I'm lucky that, I've got, I've made some great connections in the film industry now, and that's definitely a next big piece of my life. Mm-hmm. I've got some other projects that I'm already working on, and hopefully it doesn't take 18 years because I'm like, God, I might have one more left in me.
Right.
But it's a snowball effect, and so now I've got the right credibility behind me, mm-hmm. and the right conversations are being had, and who wouldn't pick up my phone call before picks it up now, and so that's going to be a big piece of it as well, and and I feel like my wife is really coming into the best version of herself, and it's her time too, mm-hmm. and so I think it's time to sit back and I really feel like the next move together, not to say we haven't been a family, because we have, but I really think the next move together is a family move, and mostly my wife and I, working together, doing something that she loves, doing something that I love, and I really think it does come back to kind of a personal brand, helping others, giving back, mm-hmm. coaching, teaching, whatever that might morph into. We're big on marriage. We love marriage. We've not had an easy marriage, but we're very passionate about marriage, not giving up. So
someone needs to show me what an easy marriage looks like.
Yeah. Well, I can definitely not do that.
It's like the tooth fairy. It doesn't exist.
Yeah. I can definitely not do that.
It doesn't exist. Yeah. You don't grow if it's easy, right?
That's right.
That's the whole thing. So I have to ask this question. Looking back, right, as you've told us that story,
sure.
Do you ever say to yourself or in your prayer that everything that I've ever done has led me to this actual moment, mm-hmm. It just seems that way to me.
Oh,
you've been prepped for this moment.
And let me say that, and then in every one of those moments, I was hoping it would bring me there. I absolutely didn't know if it would bring me there.
Sure.
I was nervous. I was fearful. Mm-hmm. I doubted. I just confused. Dark nights of the soul. Whatever, and fumbled a lot of it up along the way. Right. It's not like it's a perfect journey, but to see how kind of like it all. I kind of went into a vision one time, and I saw an arrow in the hands of God, and He kind of shot this arrow, and it was going through the forest, right? And it was just way to the right, way to the left, way to the right, and it's like moving out of all the trees, right? And then it just went on what felt like forever, and then all of a sudden the very end went boom, and I looked up, and it was dead bullseye, And I think it was just kind of like my way of being encouraged by God to say, listen, buddy, I know you think you're all over the place, but don't worry. I'm going to get you there. We're going to get to the end of what all this looks like. And by the way, enjoy it.
Look around.
Enjoy the journey.
Create, build, have fun.
There's no path that's linear.
Yeah, because exactly right. Because I think if tomorrow I said, you know what, I'm done. I'm I'm going back to homeless ministry for the rest of my life. I think He'd be like, amen. I think if I said, I want to do 10 more movies and build 4 more hotels, I think He'd be like, amen. So I think it's that. It's just taking a little less pressure off yourself and just trying to enjoy the journey a little bit more. And I don't know if I did that a lot in the first season, but I'm hoping this second half looks a little better.
I think everybody needs to hear that. Yeah. If entrepreneurs listening to this, you need to hear that. Pick your head up for a second and look around. take it in, because it flies by,
Man.
And we
flies
get
by.
caught up in what's not working and the frustrations of day to day, and forget to take a big picture.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
for sure.
And never give up, right?
Right.
I mean, that's the deal. Never give up, right?
Yeah.
Never doubt the process. Keep fighting. And I think for me, it's just continue to do the work, the inner work, that it takes to be the best version of yourself, no matter what you do.
Yeah. I'd be remiss if we didn't, just for a hot second, let everybody know about the hotel, its features, because you need to talk about that. And I would like to close with you, with something, and we'll do that in a second. But tell everybody about this amazing hotel.
Yeah, it's super excited about it, man. So we just opened 3 months ago, Bardstown, Kentucky, the bourbon capital of the world. We have 11 distilleries within a 15-mile radius, and some of the bigger players like Maker's Mark, Jim Beam, Heaven Hill, and Bardstown Bourbon Company, and Preservation. It goes on, right? And you've been there. But we took an old abandoned Holiday Inn hotel that was sitting right at about 60,000 square feet. We were able to get some historic tax credits brought into it. We flipped the hotel. So what used to be the front is now the back. We added an additional 4,500 square feet because we wanted vaulted ceilings. We've got a high-end steakhouse restaurant called Oak and Ember inside the hotel. We've got 5 bars on site. We've got private dining room experience. We've got a resort-style pool.
That's what I was going to say. It's a resort.
It really is. A
That's
resort-style
cool.
pool, 25-person hot tub. People joke because I was doing that social media, and they're like, really, 25 people? And so I guess somebody ended up coming out and actually going, wow, this is the largest hot tub in the state of Kentucky. I didn't know that. I was like, well, I wasn't trying out for that, but that works. And so, but it's got 95 rooms, 8 suites that are all bourbon branded education suites. So you can stay at the Limestone Suite or the Prohibition Suite.
No way.
That's cool.
We've got a really cool private speakeasy. I know that's kind of played out, the speakeasy, but we got a really cool private speakeasy.
I love the speakeasy.
Yeah, and it's hidden, so you got to have a certain path.
We'll talk about that off camera.
That's right. Yeah, you don't even know it's in the hotel, basically.
That's cool.
And then we've got what's called Bourbon and Bunkers, which is a golf simulation room. And then we've got a bourbon library. So yeah, it's a retail gift shop. We've got our own bourbon brand that we sell within the hotel.
Gosh, I had
But we really wanted it to be a one-stop shop on the bourbon trail, right? So as you come in, so many times people think, well, I'm just going to book a tasting here. I'm going to book a last minute tasting here. And you just can't, right? Like, you look at Buffalo Trace, they're booked 6 months out, right? And a lot of people don't know that. So we want to take the consumer by the hand, create a one-stop shop. So we set up your tours, your tastings, the transportation's included within the hotel. Oh, by the way, we built a rejuvenation room inside the hotel.
Oh.
That's probably the funnest thing. So it was going to just be a workout room, and we kind of got a little bit closer to the end. I was like, yeah, it's kind of boring. How many people are drinking and working out at the same time? So maybe there's, which I do too.
Just one of us.
I try to at least hydrate and get a workout in, so I at least feel better about myself.
Yes, because the bourbon is good.
That's right. But we ended up taking this room, and the rejuvenation room is it's got IVs, hydration.
It's the hangover room.
It's the hangover room. Yeah. So we got 4 chairs that are hydration IV stations. We've got an oxygen bar in there. We've got an infrared sauna and a cryotherapy machine.
Let's go.
So if you
That's
want
brilliant.
a quick recovery on the trail, I mean, hopefully everybody acts responsible, but every now and then.
Hey, one gets away from you.
That's right. So it's a way to quickly recover and get you back out there and or get you home safely. So yeah, we're really proud of it, man. Thank you.
I didn't realize you had so many things inside the hotel.
Yeah. Well, you'll see it hopefully this weekend.
Oh yeah,
right?
I am
going down there.
If I don't come up tonight, like you've got me, because I was telling my wife, we're heading up to the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. I know this will air after that. And I've been going every year, but this year, like I'm taking my wife, like I'm not going with my bourbon buddies, my bourbon group. We're going to go up. So we've been fortunate enough that we launched a magazine called Blind Tiger outside of NFM.
Congratulations.
And, awesome. Thank you. And last year, that's when I met you. Thank you for at least entertaining me last year, because I was doing that stalker thing that I did to Roy. It's like when I have my eyes locked in on somebody, it's hard for me to deviate.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you coming on the show, making this effort.
You didn't make it weird at all.
So, no.
Good job.
I certainly tried.
Good job, Terry.
No. Yeah. How do you transition from that? No, so yeah, we're going up there to enjoy the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. We're going to get some interviews. We're going to do some cool stuff. But I was telling her, I was like, we got to go to a really cool, like I am a restaurant guy.
Yeah.
Like, I like a high-end experience. I like to be wild. And I was like, I'm going to ask Will. I bet there's a restaurant in his hotel.
Yeah.
So that is what we're going to do.
So
And
there you go,
if I
man.
can convince her to do that tonight, we will. But
We'll get reservations online.
look at her. She's shaking her arm. But yeah, I'm stoked to check it out. I think it's
I don't even drink bourbon, and it makes me want to come to that.
You got
Well,
you got to at
listen,
least see it on Instagram. It's so,
and that's
it's so
the great
awesome.
thing about it. You know, obviously we've got an incredible wine selection, craft cocktails, mocktails. We got a little bit for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, we got, 10 I think close to 8 or 10 beers on tap. So, we got a little bit for everything.
Yeah,
You know,
just smart.
yeah.
Very smart.
You could have Coke and Club soda if you want to.
Okay.
You know, it's whatever you want.
I would love to keep going and keep talking and get deeper and
it's
deeper and deeper, but we do have to close the show. But I would like for you for a moment just to address an entrepreneur out there. Maybe you're addressing your 28-year-old self, your 29-year-old self is making that jump into real estate. Share a little insight, share a little wisdom if you could.
Yeah. I would say, and this is going to sound pretty cliche, but I would say slow down just a little bit, enjoy the journey, right? It's the process of the balance of life, right? It's like, what is it to gain all this but lose this, right? And so for me, I really wanted to make my family a priority. And that was a very specific goal of us as a family. And it might not be for other people, but for me, it was enough to say, slow down, enjoy the journey. And it's going to take time to build this. I think to the positive, and I think sometimes to the absolute detriment of our country right now, is you see the social media thing, right? And you see all these influencers, and you see these Instagrammers, and oh my God, they're worth $1 billion, and they're 18, and they're 19, and they're 22, and I feel like it's built this unrealistic culture to even my kids. I watch my kids, thinking about these kind of things, and I'm like, listen, let's go back to the books that I read, and the things that gave me peace were like, hey, the average millionaire really doesn't become a millionaire till he's 60, right? And it was like, okay, well, I got time. Like, we're building a foundation here. Things are going on, and now it's so fast, it's so flashy, right? It's these, I don't want to say, get rich quick schemes, but it's just, all these things where it just makes you kind of lose the appreciation of what hard work and grit really look like.
Sure.
And what the balance of that is, So I would just say, slow down just a little bit, enjoy the ride. And it's okay if you have no idea what you want to do. I think through my testimony, you've seen that pretty clear. I'm 47. I'm still wondering, what the next thing is. Right. And, you're dreaming way too small, really, at the end of the day. There's a bigger dream out there that you can obtain and go after, and it won't come easy, right?
Right.
But never say never, and never give up. So
I love that.
Land the plane with that.
I've got nothing else to add to that. I feel a little bit, I connect with your story on so many levels. The slow down one's hitting me right now. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on. I know I've said it way too many times at this point, but this has been a huge honor for us. So thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure.
Y'all go follow the Trail Hotel. Is it Trail Hotel?
Yeah, www.thetrailhotel.com.
There you go. Check out Liam Ash if you're up at in Bardstown. Yeah. Get that Black Manhattan. Tell him Terry sent you. Then they will say who.
Buy some clothes at my wife's shop, Katie Lake.
Yes. Yeah.
Plug there for Mama.
We're going to do that too. I know Carrie's already got the eyes on that. But we appreciate you being here. Vanessa, appreciate the co-host. You did excellent.
Thank you.
Super thankful for you.
Guys, on behalf of Spread the Positive, Nashville Fit, Roy Mangrum, who couldn't be here today, and all of our wonderful sponsors, we appreciate you tuning in for this show. We ask that if you found it valuable at all, that you would share it with someone that you love. And please like and subscribe. We need you on that. So we'll catch you on the next one.